In the high, wild, pine-scented Gold Ridge hills of western Montana, where the ghosts of the 1860s still walk the creeks at dusk, where men once killed each other over a single pan of color and the mountains swallowed dreams whole, two brothers, Kevin and Lynn Dietz, stood in the dying light of a blood-red sunset staring at the slow-motion funeral of everything they had ever wanted, their excavators silent, their wash plant coughing black smoke like a dying animal, their bank accounts hemorrhaging, their crew packing tools because there was no more money for payroll, every single test hole they had dug for 2 straight seasons coming up with nothing but heartbreaking flashes of fine dust, just enough gold to torture them, never enough to live on, the kind of cruelties that break stronger men than them, until one ice-cold night when the wind howled like Judgment Day and the stars felt 1,000,000 miles away, Kevin picked up the phone with shaking hands and made the very last call either of them had left in their souls, a plea, a prayer, a Hail Mary to the one living legend every desperate miner whispers about when the darkness closes in, Freddy Dodge, the man they call the Gold Whisperer, the guy who can look at bare rock and hear it speak, the guy who has pulled more lost mines back from the dead than anyone alive. 24 hours later a dust-covered white truck rolled up the rutted dirt road and out stepped Freddy, boots crunching on frost, eyes already scanning the ground like a hawk, and the second he saw the brothers' faces he knew they were one bad day from losing everything their grandfather had staked, everything their father had dreamed of, everything they had bet their marriages and their sanity on. So without a single wasted word he grabbed the old claim maps yellowed with age, unfolded them across the hood of his truck, traced the snake-shaped boundary with a calloused finger and started walking the creek while the brothers trailed behind. Like men walking to their own execution, past the gigantic hand-stacked rock walls the old-timers had built stone by stone with nothing but mules and black powder and raw rage, walls so perfectly engineered that after 130 years they still held the creek exactly where those bearded madmen wanted it. Past the scars and trenches and glory holes where men had moved mountains one wheelbarrow at a time chasing color that sometimes paid in fortunes and sometimes paid in graves, until Freddy suddenly stopped dead on a quiet, grassy inside bend that looked as ordinary as a church lawn, a bend every miner for 5 generations had walked past without a second glance because it was too far from the main channel, too peaceful, too innocent, but to Freddy it screamed like a fire alarm because inside bends are where physics and greed collide, where rushing glacial floods slowed thousands of years ago and dropped every ounce of heavy gold they were carrying into one perfect natural vault, and right there in the fading light he drove a stick into the ground and said in that calm, quiet voice that makes grown men believe in miracles again, dig here, right exactly here, and don't stop till you hit River Rock. So they fired up the track hoe and peeled back the grass like opening a treasure chest, and 6 inches down the bucket scraped into rounded cobbles worn smooth by a river that vanished 10,000 years ago. 3 feet down they were in an ancient channel so rich the gravel itself looked chocolate brown and oily with promise. Freddy scooped one 5-gallon bucket of that untouched pay dirt, walked to the creek like a priest carrying holy water, knelt in the icy flow, dipped his battered green pan, and started washing with the slow, hypnotic rhythm of a man who has done this 10,000 times, and when the black sand finally swirled away the bottom of the pan exploded into a solid yellow ribbon so thick, so bright, so heavy with chunky pickers and fat flakes and a tail of fine flour gold that the brothers dropped to their knees in the mud, Kevin choking out through tears, "You found it, Freddy, you actually found it," and Freddy just looked up with that crooked grin and said, "No brother, we found it, we all found it," because that one pan held more gold than the brothers had pulled in the entire previous month. Proof that the old-timers with their endless sweat and dynamite and hand-stacked monuments had somehow, impossibly, missed the richest spot on the whole damn claim, and in that single heartbeat the entire mountain changed. Hope came roaring back like a freight train. The crew started cheering, the brothers hugged like kids on Christmas morning, and word spread faster than wildfire through every mining camp from Alaska to Arizona that Freddy Dodge had just uncovered a hidden payload so massive people were already whispering a number that sounded like pure fantasy. $45 million, but before anyone could even dream of counting bars they had to face the cold, brutal truth that finding the pay dirt was only half the war, because their wash plant was a gold-eating monster, material dumping in chaotic piles, riffles buried under gravel avalanches, fine gold washing straight out the tailing pile and back into the creek to mock them forever. So for 5 straight days and 5 freezing nights Freddy and his wizard mechanic Wanibara lived under floodlights, torches sparking, welders screaming, tearing that plant down to bare bones and rebuilding it from the ground up like Frankenstein, creating a perfect beast, replacing the snapped hopper chain so material fed smooth and steady instead of choking, fabricating a custom steel spreader chute that laid the slurry out in a perfect even blanket so every single riffle could breathe, ripping out the old worthless riffles and installing brand new deep drop Hungarian-style ones angled and spaced exactly for the water speed and gold size they were now running. Then laying down layer after layer of Freddy's secret custom black mats with thousands of microscopic grooves that grab flour gold like a spiderweb grabs flies, and when they finally fired the reborn plant up and fed it that sacred brown dirt from the inside, Ben, the sound alone was different, no more coughing and dying, just a deep, healthy roar and a perfect sheet of muddy water flowing like liquid money over every inch of the box. And after exactly 80 heart-stopping minutes they shut it down, the silence suddenly deafening. Then came the cleanup, the moment every miner both lives for and dreads more than death itself. Mats hosed down, concentrates poured into buckets like black lava, carried to the creek like holy relics, Freddy on his knees in the freezing water panning with the calm of a surgeon while the brothers stood behind him barely breathing. And when the black sand finally washed away, the bottom of the pan turned into a solid river of yellow so thick and bright it looked like the sun had melted. They dried it, poured it on the scale, the digital numbers flickered, settled, and the mountain itself seemed to hold its breath. 0.44 ounces, a 350 to 400% increase over anything they had ever seen, $900 profit from 80 minutes of running dirt, enough to pay bills, bring the crew back, buy groceries, breathe again, and prove once and for all that the mine was not dead, it was only sleeping, but that was just the spark that lit the $45 million legend, because Freddy sat down that night with a calculator and a six-pack and ran the numbers on what that grade really meant across the whole claim, 2 ounces per 100 yards, insane money, and when you stretch that ancient channel hundreds, maybe thousands of feet through their property at 10 feet wide and 3 feet thick, the math goes absolutely nuclear. Hundreds of ounces become thousands, become tens of thousands, become a number so big it makes grown men dizzy. $45 million isn't what they dug up that week, it's the absolute blue sky, life-changing, generational wealth potential sleeping under their boots if the streak holds true all the way to the property line, meaning Freddy Dodge didn't hand them a mountain of gold bars, he handed them the ancient map, the perfect machine, and the living proof that sometimes the biggest paydays on earth aren't found by luck. They're found by one man who can read the land like others' red faces, one man who refused to let 2 brothers lose everything, one man who turned a graveyard into a gold mine and a death sentence into a dynasty, and that, right there in the freezing Montana moonlight with a pan full of yellow fire and 2 grown men crying like babies, is exactly how a single untouched bend in a forgotten creek became the greatest comeback story in modern gold rush history.